So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. When he saw Elijah, he said to him, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" "I have not made trouble for Israel," Elijah replied, "but you and your father's family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals. Now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table." So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal is God, follow him." But the people said nothing. Then Elijah said to them, "I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get two bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord, the God who answers by fire. He is God." Then all the people said, "What you say is good." Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose one of the bulls and prepare it first, since there are so many of you. Call on the name of your God, but do not light the fire." So they took the bull that was given to them and prepared it. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. "Baal, answer us," they shouted, but there was no response. No one answered, and they danced around the altar they had made. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. "Shout louder," he said. "Surely he is God. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened." So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come here to me." They came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which had been torn down. Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, "Your name shall be Israel." With the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench round it large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. He arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and laid it on the wood. Then he said to them, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood." "Do it again," he said, and they did it again. "Do it a third time," he ordered, and they did it the third time. The water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. At the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, "Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again." Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, he is God! The Lord, he is God!" Then Elijah commanded them, "Seize the prophets of Baal. Don't let anyone get away." They seized them, and Elijah had them brought down to the Kishon Valley and slaughtered there. And Elijah said to Ahab, "Go, eat and drink, for there is the sound of a heavy rain." So Ahab went off to eat and drink, but Elijah climbed to the top of Carmel, bent down to the ground, and put his face between his knees. "Go and look toward the sea," he told his servant, and he went up and looked. "There is nothing there," he said. 7 times Elijah said, "Go back." The 7th time the servant reported, "A cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea." So Elijah said, "Go and tell Ahab, hitch up your chariot and go down before the rain stops you." Meanwhile, the sky grew black with clouds. The wind rose. A heavy rainstorm came on, and Ahab rode off to Jezreel. The power of the Lord came on Elijah, and tucking his cloak into his belt, he ran ahead of Ahab all the way to Jezreel.
Well, good morning, and I hope you slept well if you're camping or if you were this morning. And here we are, part 2 of the showdown. So it's Yahweh, the true God, versus Baal, the fake God. And so far it's been about 3.5 years and there's no rain. So it's getting pretty serious in terms of, well, starvation, really. We met a woman last night who was about to eat her last meal. She had enough just to make one final loaf of bread. And then Elijah said, I'll have that, please. And then amazingly, she gives it to Elijah, and he says, well, fortunately, because I'm a prophet, you can now have an unlimited supply of bread. So God keeps her alive and Elijah alive. But for everybody else, it's getting pretty severe. So look at verse 2. Look at 18 verse 1. I said yesterday, you must never allow me to miss out any verses. So you might have noticed we missed out some. So let's fill them in. 18 verse 1. After a long time, in the 3rd year, say 3 years since the rain competition was announced, the word of the Lord came to Elijah, go and present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the land. Okay, so we've had enough waiting for Baal. People are going to starve. It's time for God to intervene, and he will send the rain. So Elijah went to present himself to Ahab. Now the famine was severe in Samaria, that's the north of Israel, and Ahab had summoned Obadiah, his palace administrator. Obadiah was a dedicated believer in the Lord. That's cool. So even in the time of this super evil king Ahab, he's doing more evil than anyone else, it turns out in his own civil service, right in the middle of the government, is a faithful Christian. Sort of secretly faithful believer, this guy Obadiah. While Jezebel was killing off the Lord's prophets, Obadiah had taken 100 prophets and hidden them in 2 caves, 50 in each, and supplied them with food and water. He's like a sort of Corrie ten Boom, you know, that amazing story. So he's hiding these believers who otherwise Ahab and Jezebel would kill, and smuggling them food. Ahab had said to Obadiah, verse 5, go through the land to all the springs and valleys. Maybe we can find some grass to keep the horses and mules alive so that we won't have to kill any of our animals. So they divided the land they were to cover, Ahab going in one direction, Obadiah in another. It's amazing. So things are so serious that the king himself is searching for grass. You know, there's almost no vegetation left. They're going to have to kill some of the animals in the royal stable. Anything left that they can feed them. But God says, I'm about to send rain. But just before he does send rain, we get round 2, the barbecue competition. Now, I'm sorry that I haven't gone to as much trouble preparing props for this as I did when I taught it for a youth weekend, and I have to say I did enjoy that quite a lot. But I thought, you know, this calls for a visual aid. So I got 2 barbecues. You have to imagine them, I'm afraid, so I'm sorry. But I had 2 barbecues at the front. And then I went to a stage pyrotechnic hire company. The most fun thing about it wasn't actually just getting the thing, but it was when they said, oh, what's it for? You said, it's for church weekend. And they looked really quite shocked at this. I said, I need something that will shoot sort of 12-foot flames into the air. They're like, obviously, that's what we do. Are we a stage pyrotechnic company or not? So anyway, I got that. And so installed in one of the barbecues was this sort of flare. And I had a secret button under the pulpit. I don't have a secret button now. I'm disappointed. Oh, you're disappointed, but imagine it. So it's quite a dramatic scene, isn't it? So that, you know, the teenagers can get their heads around this. There's 2 barbecues, 2 entire cows. I mean, this is going to be a big barbecue. You get a whole bull and you butcher it and lay it out. So you cut it into steaks, lay the steaks on the grill. I'll do the same. But the one thing that you're not allowed to do is use firelighters or matches, or any kind of ignition. You just have to pray it alight. And the whole point of this is because then we can find out who God is. Which one is it? So is it your God, Baal, who, to be fair, is not doing so well at his specialist chosen subject of sending rain 3 years in? But, you know, let's try a different round. Or is the Lord the true God? So they set it all up. And then, without even doing a coin toss, Elijah the gentleman, he says, why don't you guys go first? And so they got their bull ready, 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah. So you've got to imagine there's like almost 1,000 people in religious service. This isn't just the people, this is the actual prophets. So, you know, they've got an enormous number of clergy or, you know, whatever, that are gathered, massed around on the top of Mount Carmel. I used to call it, with a typo, Mount Caramel, but it's not that. It's Mount Carmel, where your Gesh's uncle is from there, which I think is very cool. But there they are on this mountain, with this barbecue, which they're not allowed to light. And so they pray. And they pray all morning. O Baal, answer us. O Baal, answer us. And they do some dances as well, religious dances and praying. And at noon, so it's gone the whole morning, half the day, and nothing's happened. So Elijah begins to taunt them. It's like sort of trash talking in cricket or whatever. My favourite trash talking is Muhammad Ali. He said of his opponent, he's got 2 chances, Slim and none. And Slim's just left town. It's a great line, isn't it? He's obviously been practicing that. Elijah's even cheekier. Shout louder. I mean, after all, he is a god. Maybe he is deep in thought. Or busy, which I think is a euphemism for, in the same way as you are busy when you go to the bathroom, or the powder. As my mum used to say, I've gone to powder my nose. Yeah, maybe he's on the loo, which, is a reasonable reason why one of us might be detained. But if you're a god and you're too busy to answer a prayer because you're on the loo, it's kind of making fun, or travelling, or sleeping. Come on, shout louder. He sort of mock encourages them, so they do. They shout louder. So at midday, the volume goes up. But that doesn't work. So then, and this is quite grotesque, but verse 28, they start to do self-harming. And this is a feature of some ancient Near Eastern pagan religions, that people thought that by bloodletting, by human blood flowing, you could sort of coerce the dozy deity interaction. So they try that. It doesn't work either. Verse 29, midday passed, they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid any attention. You can feel the anticlimax. All day they have been praying to Baal. Nothing. Then Elijah said, okay, my turn. Come here. And they called to the people, and they build up the altar. He pours on it a lot of water. Anyone want to suggest why? It's Elijah's turn, and verse, 33. Fill 4 jars with water, pour it on the offering, on the wood. Do it again, he said. Do it a third time, he did. So the water ran down around the altar and filled the trench. Why add water?
Where did they get water from?
Well, this is a very good point, right? So there's not a lot of water, right? So one of the effects of this is you are raising the stakes a lot. Like, if this is your final gamble, like if it doesn't rain after this, you're sunk. So there's a hosepipe ban. No one can.
You had to bring up 800 feet. So
Right, sure.
1,200 feet up Mount Carmel. So you've got to bring up the camel, the sacrifices up there.
They've got 12. They need 12 jars. Yeah, I guess they can do that with 12 people or 24 people. They take shifts or something. But yeah, but why the water? There's not a lot of water. It raises the stakes. Yeah. Any other reasons? Yeah.
Maybe he did it so he can prove even with water on it, which isn't impossible, he can still do it.
Exactly. God's like, you're not expecting me to light a dry barbecue, are you? I mean, it's patronising. At least make it a contest worth entering. Yeah. So they just make it a bit harder. Excellent. Okay, and then they do. And then instead of praying all day, like the prophets of Baal, Elijah prays once. 1 paragraph. Lord, please answer me. Let's get this done, so that the people will know that you are the God. And then, verse 38, and this is when, and again, you have to imagine it, but this is when I just pressed my little button. I wish there was one now. It was so cool, honestly. It's brilliant. And then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil. I looked this up. It's about 3,000 degrees Celsius you need to vaporise stones. So it's pretty warm in there. Licks up all the water in the trench. When all the people saw it, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God." So, rain competition, 0-0. Barbecue competition, 1-0. And then after that, God sends the rain at the end of the chapter. We've been waiting for this since chapter 17, verse 1. God said it's not going to rain until I say so. And it doesn't rain for 3.5 years. And now at the end of chapter 18, there's a little cloud in the sky, and then it rains. It's a little bit scary for Elijah at first, I think. So he says, verse 41, go eat and drink, there is the sound of a heavy rain, which there isn't. I mean, this is exaggeration, like there's no rain. He goes, oh, what is do I hear thunderstorms? You know, and you say it on a very sunny day. No, but it's a prophecy, right? He's a prophet, so he's making a prediction. So, and then Ahab went off and takes him at his word. And then Elijah climbed to the top of Mount Carmel, bent down to the ground, and put his face between his knees. Like I actually can't do it because I need to go to the gym more. I can't do that. But if you can put your face right between your knees, it's like some extreme prayer position. Lord, I've just said publicly it's going to rain. Please, will it rain? And then, having prayed, he sends his servant off and says, go and look towards the sea. And he went up and looked. There's nothing there. Oh, that's awkward. I was hoping for like a thunderstorm, black clouds and like that. Just go and have another check, would you? Just make sure there's nothing you've missed meteorologically. So his servant goes off and, it's blue sky, sir. Well, it doesn't hurt to be safe, so just go and check third time lucky. Yeah, it's still pretty sunny, sir, like it's been for the last 3.5 years. Check again. I've only got to 4. You've got to 7. I mean, it's going to get embarrassing, isn't it? Please check again. That's you prayed, and you think, well, I think God's the true God, and He's going to. But it's an awkward pause, and so the 7th time is persistent, like Jesus tells us to be in prayer. And the 7th time, there was a cloud. It's about yay big, the size of a hand. And then Elijah says, run before the storm overtakes you. So he's got real faith here in what's going to happen. And sure enough, then the thunderstorm comes, the torrential rain comes. And so at the end of round 2, 2-0. Here's the question. You spotted this. We're taking last night's passage and today's passage together because it's really one story. It's the story of the rain competition, but the barbecue competition's in the middle of it. So the rain competition started yesterday. Well, in their case, started 3.5 years ago. Chapter 17. Baal can't send any rain. Then there's the barbecue competition. Baal can't light a barbecue. God can light a barbecue. So he wins. And then he sends the rain. So here's my question. I put it on the sheet for you. Why does Yahweh wait until after he's won the barbecue competition before he scores the winning goal in the rain competition? So why don't you just go rain competition first, barbecue competition second, 1-0, 2-0. Instead, he goes 0-0, half-time, then barbecue, then rain. Okay, turn to your neighbour. Some of you have already got it, but why don't you turn to your neighbour and see if you can figure it out. Okay, well, what do you reckon? Why wait until you've lit the barbecue if you're Yahweh before you send the rain? Yes, you had a hand up first.
If God had sent the rain, they would have given praise to the prophets and to the Baal and so forth. But by sending the fire, deading off the prophets, like that's ultimately to the people that God is sovereign and the only one.
Excellent answer. So if you sent the rain first, they'd have gone, Baal, yes, we knew you'd come through for us. You took your time, but hooray for Baal, right? Yeah. So only after Baal has been decisively trounced and everyone knows that he's fake, then it's safe to send the rain because everyone knows it's Yahweh that sends the rain. Yeah, everyone agree? Mm-hmm. Anyone have anything else? This is excellent. Yes.
My name's Tim.
Hi, Tim.
You've got to remember that God is always in charge, and
Mm-hmm.
He'll do it when He is ready to do it. And we have to have faith in Him. And He proves it time and again in the Bible. We just have 7 times I have to bow down to Him. And I've noticed throughout the Bible, the number 7 always crops up. That's His favourite number all the time through the Bible. So He does it on the 7th time. He will do His deed. He will do His miracles as well. So we just have to be patient and just wait for Him to do what He needs to do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's persistence, isn't it, in the prayer, because it's God's timing. Yeah, absolutely right. There's actually more to it than that. So what we've got so far, but there's more. And one of the things I wanted to sort of share with you this weekend, yesterday we saw there's never a wasted verse. So there's always a reason. Even, do you remember yesterday, what region is Zarephath in? The region of Sidon, yeah. And that matters, it turns out, because we learned that this widow is from the heart of Baal worshipping territory, because Ethbaal is king of the Sidonians, and there's a clue in his name. Yeah, but every detail matters. Today I want to make the point that there's always a bit more. So you think you've got the Bible, you think, okay, I can do 1 Kings 18, I know this story. There's more, and it's worth looking even closer. Because I've slightly misled you so far, I'm sorry. Because I've been saying that it's a contest between Yahweh and Baal, which it kind of is. I mean, you know, on the surface, that's what it is. You know, let's have 2 barbecues, a Baal one and a Yahweh one, and see who can light it. You know, that it sort of is that, but it sort of isn't that as well, because Baal doesn't exist, actually. So really, it's a contest between Yahweh and no one. I mean, obviously, and that's kind of what the comedy comes from, because no one answers the prayer, unsurprisingly, because there's no one there. He's not even on the loo. He just doesn't. He's not even there at all. So no surprise that he doesn't light the fire. But as contests go, it's kind of less impressive, isn't it? So imagine I were to say, "Oh, I played tennis yesterday," and you said, "Oh, really, Andrew? I didn't know you played tennis." "Oh, yeah, yeah." "Well, who won?" I did." "Oh, congratulations. Who did you play against?" "No one." You know, he didn't return my serve once because he wasn't there. I just served into the, you know. So the point is, yes, God won, but why bother to engage into a contest with a non-existent opponent? Well, the answer is because the people think that Baal exists. So God's entered into this sort of pretend contest for the people's sake. That's what it's for. It's not really Yahweh fighting Baal. Maybe he's fighting Satan, who stands behind Baal. You know, in 1 Corinthians 8, it makes it very clear that there's idols, they don't really exist. You know, these man-made gods, they're not actually gods. But then 1 Corinthians 10 says, but there are demons that are behind idols. So that's the nuance, that these false gods are imaginary, but there's a real devil. So I guess, you know, you could say Yahweh's fighting the devil. He's behind the imaginary statue of Baal, maybe. But Baal himself doesn't exist. Really the contest is, and I put it there on the handout, it's really God in a contest against the people's doubts. That's really the competition he's involved in. And I just want to show you that in all sorts of ways. So just look at what changes at the barbecue competition. I put it there on the sheet, the before and after. Before, the true prophets are cut off. So Jezebel, that's the queen, Ahab's wife, she is going around rounding up Christian pastors. I mean, they're not called Christian pastors because it's before Jesus, but believers in the true God. She's rounding them up and killing them. So it's a time of terrible persecution against the church. And they're being eliminated. And Obadiah, this Corrie ten Boom kind of character, he's faithful, but he's scared. So secretly, he's smuggling food to these prophets in the caves, 100 of them, keeping them alive. That's before. But afterwards, it's the false prophets who are cut off. And we're squeamish about that because we think, wow, 450 people die. But, yeah, they're meant to die under the law of Moses. The penalty for being a false prophet is execution. It's the death penalty. And they get the death penalty. It's actually the correct judicial outcome here. So earlier it's the innocent prophets who would die. Now it's the fake prophets who receive the death penalty. That's a change. Before, the people limped. This is a very evocative term. Verse 21. Elijah says, how long will you waver, or literally, how long will you limp between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. If Baal is God, follow him. But the people, they can't decide. Here's the problem. It's not that everyone's worshipping Baal. A lot of them are. It's just no one is really quite sure who to worship. So things have got so bad in Israel at this time, under King Ahab, the evil king, that they don't even know who the real God is. It's pretty frightening, right? You think of their heritage, and they've been brought out of the land of Egypt, through the parting of the water of the Red Sea, and God fed them with manna in the wilderness, and he's brought them into the promised land, flowing with milk and honey. And, it's just, the track record's amazing, and yet now they're like, which is God? I'm not really sure. Maybe it's that Yahweh that we've heard about, or maybe it's that God that the Canaanites follow with his lightning spear. We're not sure. And just think of that in England, a country once where lots of people are Christians, but now with the vast majority of the population don't even know where you would go for answers. Like, would you go to the Christian God? I don't know. Maybe you go to the Buddhist God, and who knows? Or even in some parts of the church in the country, people are so unsure. Well, do I still trust the Bible or don't I? So that's the tragedy here, that Israel has wandered into the situation, ancient Israel has wandered into the situation where they don't even know, just like many people in Britain, just like even many nominal Christians. I said yesterday, I grew up in a church where people didn't really know. So it wasn't really a clear gospel-believing church. It was we do religious stuff on Sundays, but we're not entirely sure whether we believe it still, church. And that's the problem that Yahweh's tackling here. And he wins. Because after the fire has fallen, they all say, Yahweh is God, Yahweh is God. They're sure that before they don't know. I mean, as multiple choice questions go, it's not a very difficult one, is it? Multiple choice question, theology exam. Is God A, Yahweh, B, Baal? They're like, we're not sure. Now they know. I think that's why there's actually such enthusiasm for the barbecue competition amongst the people. So when Elijah proposes it, they go, good idea, that'll help. Because then we'll be able to find out, right? They're really up for this. And then they know. But previously, they're limping. Now, there's something even more subtle about this, because this same word for their wavering between opinions or limping between opinions, on the one hand, Yahweh's God. On the other hand, Baal is God. And they do this sort of silly dance like this. Oh, I'm not sure, because Jesus on Sundays, my girlfriend on Mondays. My Christian peers on the weekend away, and then my non-Christian peers during the week. And they live this sort of half-Christian life, what the book of James calls being double-minded, or what Elijah calls wavering or limping. So you imagine this silly dance. And it looks stupid, I know, as you're watching me doing it, but it's even more stupid to live like this. Sometimes for Jesus, sometimes not. That's actually the same dance that the prophets of Baal are doing. So you can't see it in your English translation, but in the original Hebrew, the prophets of Baal, they limp, same word, around their altar. In this stupid dance that takes all day. And when Elijah asks them, who is the real God? They don't know. They're silent. Just like when the prophets of Baal called to Baal, there's no answer. He is silent. And I think what's going on here is that idolatry, it sort of infects people. That they become contaminated by the false worship that they're engaged in. So just as the prophets are limping, they're limping. This whole compromise half and half life, that's what becomes normal. And Yahweh doesn't want that, and Elijah doesn't want that. And so he prays. What's the prayer for? It's actually not a prayer, please defeat Baal. Did you notice that? He doesn't pray, please defeat Baal, because Baal doesn't exist. He says, please turn the hearts of this people back to you. That's what it's actually about. That's what's going on. Please, would this wayward church be united wholeheartedly in worship of Yahweh only, instead of limping around. Please. And then actually everything about it makes sense. I asked you why the water, and you were right, I think. Whoever said make it harder, they're absolutely right. But there's also more to it. Because how much water? Or how many water, should I say? How many water? 12. Yeah, it's 4 jars, 3 times 12. You think, okay, don't read too much into numbers. I mean, okay, there's 12, big deal. No, it is quite a big deal, because also, when they build the altar, how much altar? Or should I say, how many stones in the altar? Yeah, 12. Sounds a bit like an episode of Sesame Street. Do you remember this? This episode was brought to you by the letter Z and the number 12. It's like that. Everything about this is 12. And then the author actually tells you, this is important, he says 12 stones, 1 for each of the tribes. So as he's rebuilding the altar, which has been torn down, he's like 1 for Benjamin, 1 for Judah, 1 for Dan, 1 for Gad. And it's like, is this ringing any bells, everyone? 12? 12? So even the whole way he does it is designed to sort of reconnect them with their history. Do you remember the 12 tribes? And do you remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And Jacob had 12 sons, and God made promises to them, and that's the God that we worship for so long until this evil king has led you all astray. Do you remember? He's trying to reconnect them with their Christian heritage. And then the prayer, I love this prayer, because it's what I call a horizontal prayer. You know, prayers are meant to be to God, but we've all been in the prayer meeting when the prayer is obviously intended for somebody else in the room. You know that? Like, Lord, thank you that you've given our church ample-sized car park, as long as everybody parks inside the lines. Amen? It's that sort of prayer. And he does it here, doesn't he? So Elijah's prayer, he prays, where is it? O Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. It's a sort of unnecessarily long title, because God knows who he is, and Elijah knows who he's praying to, but it's sort of everyone else's benefit. Let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, and so these people may know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are, here's the key thing to the whole contest, and that you are turning their hearts back. And that's what God does. So God does win. I wasn't wrong about that before. And he sort of wins the pretend competition against Baal. But that's not really the victory here. The victory is to win back the people to serve him wholeheartedly. That's what he wants. I asked you, why does it rain afterwards? And again, you had a really good answer. But there's more. Let me read to you God's warnings in the covenant that he made. with the people of Israel. So covenant's like a formal relationship. It's like a marriage, really. A marriage is a covenant. And God says, we're going to be in a relationship, you and me. But if we're in a relationship, you can't go off and be sleeping with other gods. It's like in a marriage. We're going to wreck this marriage if you start sleeping around, right? But I love you and we're in a marriage. It's like that, but God does the same thing. We're in a relationship, but if you start committing spiritual adultery with other gods, it's not going to work. It's going to be broken. And so God gives these warnings, these curses, punishments, if you turn away from me. And he says this: if after all this is Leviticus chapter 26, there's a whole list of these terms in the covenant. If after this you won't listen to me, I'll punish you for your sins. I'll break your stubborn pride. I will make the sky above you like iron, and the ground beneath you like bronze. Your strength will be spent in vain, because your soil will not yield its crops, nor will the trees of your land yield its fruit. It's a drought, in other words. I will send a drought as a discipline to make you realise what you're doing. An iron sky and a bronze earth, he threatens. And then Deuteronomy chapter 28 is another chapter on the same thing, really, another list of these curses. And he switches it round. He says, the sky over your head will be bronze, the ground beneath you will be iron. So it's the same image as the other way around. The Lord will turn the rain of your country into dust and powder. It will come down. It will not come down from the skies until you're destroyed. No rain. Or listen to 1 Kings chapter 8. This is Solomon's prayer when he dedicates the temple. And he says this. Chapter 8, verse 35. When the heavens are shut up and there is no rain, because your people have sinned against you, and when they pray towards this place, towards the temple, and they give praise to your name and turn from their sin because you've afflicted them, hear from heaven, forgive the sin of your servants, your people Israel, teach them the right way to live, and send rain on the land and give your people for inheritance. Here's the question. So why does God wait until after the barbecue competition before he sends the rain? And I think the answer is, he sends the rain because they've repented. It's not just that he's won. I mean, of course he's won. Baal doesn't exist. But it's that they've turned back. And Solomon asks in chapter 8, if they turn back and you've withdrawn the rain, please forgive us and send the rain. And so God does. And so it's not just for the sake of the contest. You see, this is a life and death thing. And they gambled their last bit of water in the 12 jars that they splashed on the altar. And then suddenly Elijah says there's going to be a very big storm. And then he prays a lot that there would be a big storm. And then there is a big storm. Now, what's all this for? Well, first, obvious application. Don't do this. It looks stupid. I'm doing it. I can't see what it looks like, but I've realised it's being filmed. So please don't make this into a sort of self-contained reel, will you, Andrew? But it looks stupid, doesn't it? But the real thing is more stupid. Jesus on Sundays, the rest of the world living for now on Mondays to Saturdays. Don't do that. And maybe the reason we do that is because we want to hedge our bets, because we're not really sure. Can I trust Jesus with everything? And Mount Carmel says, yes, you can. He's the only God. You can trust him with everything. As they turn back to him, and we'll have discovered this. I don't know most of you at all at Christchurch. I mean, hello, thanks for having me. I know a handful of you. But there'll be stories in this room, won't there, of people who have turned back. The Lord has brought back to him. It's a wonderful thing. And then God withholds his discipline and brings his forgiveness and his blessing as we're in a right relationship with him. He wants people to know him. He wants his people to know him and to serve him wholeheartedly. And then there's one final puzzle, which is a verse you probably know, or some of you will know, in the New Testament, in the book of James. And it goes like this. Elijah was a man just like us. And then it says he prayed it wouldn't rain. It didn't rain for 3.5 years. And then he prayed it would rain, and then the heavens gave their rain. Now, in other words, he draws a prayer lesson from this chapter. Now, I just find it quite strange because, I mean, one of the things I do during the week is I teach on a Bible college course called Cornhill, which Dave's done, which is where we know each other from. And one of the principles I give is don't assume that you are the hero of the story, because you're usually not. So you don't go, Moses parted the Red Sea, I will also part Red Seas. It's like, probably you won't, no. Or Jesus died to save the world, I will also die to save the world. No, that's not how it works. So don't assume that you are the hero of the story. It's one of the principles. David defeated Goliath, I will also defeat giants. God created the world, I will also create worlds. Just it gets silly if you think that you're the hero. So Elijah prayed it wouldn't rain for 3.5 years. We pray it won't rain for 3.5 years. That caught me out, right? Because I wouldn't think ordinarily that was a safe principle. Elijah, he's kind of unusual. It's like, the bottomless flower thing. Those of us who were here last night, I can't do that. You can't do that, I'm pretty sure. It's very rare. Elijah's, he's one of God's superheroes. Hardly anyone in the Bible does as many miracles as Elijah. And then say, oh, it's just like us. Is he? Is he though? So what's going on in James? It really caught me by surprise, this verse. And certainly when it comes to our prayers, surely it's exaggeration to say we can do this. Like, when's the last time you prayed and changed the weather for more than a year? I mean, you maybe prayed for sunny day on holiday, and sometimes you got one. But you didn't single-handedly produce a drought or an end of a drought. None of us have done that. When's the last time your prayers got you an audience with the Prime Minister or the King? Just because you prayed for something that's come to his national attention? Never, right? This is rare. So what does James mean when he says, oh yeah, typically, take as a typical example, take Elijah. Now, it really puzzled me, and then I realised, of course, I just hadn't read the context. And always in the Bible, if you take a text out of context, it's a con. So then I just read on to the end of the paragraph. It made total sense. Let me read you the whole paragraph of James chapter 5, just as we close. James chapter 5, it says this: Elijah was a human being just as we are. He prayed earnestly it wouldn't rain. It didn't rain for 3.5 years. Again he prayed, and the heavens gave rain, and the earth produced its crops. Here's the final bit that I didn't read, the punchline. My brothers and sisters, if one of you should wander from the truth and someone should bring that person back, remember this: whoever turns a sinner from the error of their way will save them from death and cover a multitude of sins. That is the Elijah thing, isn't it? That's why he chooses Elijah as the example, because what Elijah does with his prayers, it's not the rain thing, that's unusual, but he prays, Lord, please bring back to you this person who used to once know you. That's what Elijah does. And James is saying we should do that as well. And those prayers are very powerful prayers. It's not a prayer about you can change the weather, you probably can't. But you could pray that God would bring someone back, because that is the kind of contest that God's into. He can't be bothered to fight non-existent gods. But he does care about bringing back people who've wandered away. And so here's my question as we close. Who would have been on this weekend 5 years ago, but isn't now? I mean, of course there's reasons not to be here. I'm not saying if you're not on the weekend, something's dodgy about your... there'll be good reasons for not people being here. But I mean, who would have been here and they're not here for not a good reason? Because you don't really see them at church anymore. Because they don't really trust Jesus the way that they used to trust him, because their life's got more complicated than it was. You'll think of the specific people. And then why don't you do an Elijah for them? Lord, please would you bring that person back? I remember those days when they were so wholehearted in following you, and then something's happened. Please bring them back. Because James says, do that. Just like Elijah did that. And you can save them from death if you do that. So maybe we can just take 30 seconds just to, who those people are in your head. I can think of some in my head. Why don't you pray now for them, and then we'll finish.